Good afternoon. Wow, this is amazing. I feel really unqualified to be here, but when you're called, you hit the call. Thank you so much for the invite. So, as she mentioned, my name is Kennedy Kirui. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya, and I run a consulting company. And basically, what we do is we work with organizations who are looking to build more impactful products for markets in Africa and build better companies. And the thinking behind it is, for a very long time, we've been looking at the idea of inspiration coming from the top and people who are running companies and managing things, knowing everything, and never really thinking about the people that we build for. So I'm going to briefly talk to you about what we do and how it works, and then now the community element that we have. Okay, yeah. So as I mentioned, the first part is more to do with my company, but the other interesting bit is a while ago we decided to start a design thinking community in Nairobi, and the reason behind it was to just bring more people together who share something similar and learn from each other. I'll expand a bit more on that. So the first thing, we talk a lot about terminologies and so many different things, but when it comes down to it, it's very, very simple. So I'll just go ahead and explain a bit more about design thinking and why it matters. And to do that, I'll use a case study from some of the work that we're doing. So in Kenya, Tanzania, and Ethiopia, there's a large population of semi-nomadic pastoralists. Semi-nomadic pastoralists are basically communities that have a permanent abode, but they will more often than not have to take their cattle to over long distances seeking for grazing grounds. And I mean that the main issue with this is it will take a lot of time. So you're basically walking about 50 to 100 kilometers to look for water for your cows. It wastes a lot of time, and you lose a lot of energy and time that you could be using for something else. So this community initially had a very interesting approach to it. So within the communities, they have what they call morans. So these are young people, very energetic, who can be sent to scout and look at the options out there. So probably the people will walk for about 50 kilometers and then call back and indicate that you can bring the cows here. So that was the first way they fixed the issue. And then we happened to work with an organization called Project Concern International. And what they were able to do is work with a satellite image mapping company to take snapshots of vegetation and then share it with the communities. And the beauty now is with that map, with the printout, you didn't need to send a scout. You could just look at the map and figure out a way to locate where there is pasture and water, and then you take your cattle there. The next version of that was sending it on WhatsApp, because before you had to print it and then send it to someone within the community, and then they would share it within the community. So you can see now at this point they are introducing more and more technology. But it got to a point where they actually had to take a bigger leap. And the reason it's a very, very big leap, I know many people here. Who doesn't have a smartphone? Okay, who has a smartphone here? Just raise your hand. Okay, there are people who don't have a smartphone. That's quite interesting. This is very rare. I've never seen it happen. But for the community that we're talking about, access to smartphones, it's very, very low. Digital literacy is very low. So you can imagine trying to introduce a mobile application in that situation. Many people would not really understand what's going on. And so the way now the design process that I talked about came in is we actually spend quite a bit of time interacting with the community, testing and getting feedback from them before we did and launched a smartphone application. And the way the smartphone application finally worked, it's called AfriScout. It's called the Shepherd's Eye in the Sky. And as someone who owns cattle, when you wake up, you go to your phone, launch AfriScout, and then it will show you the vegetation cover around the area that you live in, and then you can navigate to that vegetation. It also has a feedback component. Maybe you get to a place where there's water, but the water is not fit for consumption. So as a user, as an app user, you can give feedback and tell the rest of the community members that this is not a place that you should bring your cattle. And the interesting thing is that for a segment of a population that ideally you'd think is not in a position to use smartphone applications, they were able to easily adopt and use it because as we were designing and thinking through it, they were actively involved. And there are other interesting parameters that we had to think about. The common one being among many pastoral communities, know everything, spend a lot of money only for it to fail, and then we blame the people who are using the application. Yet at this point in time, it's us who failed them. So as we think about interventions around the focus area that we have to have the same mindset of really focusing on who's going to use what we are working on, how it's going to be beneficial to them, how do we get their input, how do we understand the environment, the issues that they face, and how do we involve them right from the beginning to coming up with ideas, to getting feedback on those ideas, to using the feedback to improve it and make it better. Others will waste money and time building things or services or working on programs that don't make any impact. They just waste a lot of money and we have no success.
Thank you very much, Kennedy, for that insight.